May to December. Parties in Los Angeles were always the same old. I would smile and pretend to be interested in the stories of these self-absorbed rich people, when deep down, I wanted to crawl in my tiny loft and watch old Hollywood movies. Being a freelance artist though, I tried my best to mingle with this crowd, as much as I hated it. I had to thank my sister's husband Luke Evans, who happened to be an A-list director. I could always count on him to sneak me in these elite parties where I would scout potential clients. Tonight's scene was a house atop Beverly Hills. It was a spectacular mansion and I tried my best to have a good time. I truly did. I was listening to Mr. Kepler, some hotshot stockbroker, go on about his latest painting acquisitions, and pretended to be entertained as I swirled my glass around. I just wanted to sell my art, goddammit. You have to come by my place one of these days, young man. See the piece yourself, Kepler offered. I nodded and smiled amiably, but no way in fuck I was gonna go visit this man in his house with just the two of us. I had only been talking to him for a few short minutes in the hopes of having him as a potential client, and he had already given me the creeps. The man next to him at the bar must have noticed my discomfort because he glanced at us conversing. Well, it's Kepler mostly talking and me contributing my disinterested hmms and ah every now and then. I met his dark and intense eyes yet again, and I wanted to scream help, as if I felt that creep Kepler getting more adjacent to my seat story after story. Hey, the mysterious man at the bar interrupted Kepler's elaborate story about God knows what. Could it possibly be you? My mouth went agape and my eyes widened. I could be an actor if I wanted to. My god, what? Shut up, you're back in LA? I rode along enthusiastically. The man stood up and I excused myself from Kepler, who seemed agitated that his story was rudely interfered with. You said more words to me in that exchange than you did to Kepler the entire time you were there, commented my knight in shining armor. We were now walking towards the balcony that overlooked the city and away from the bar, like two old friends catching up, or at least pretending to. I rolled my eyes. Try as I may to be attentive, that man seemed like he was on a mission to bore me to death. The charming man laughed. I could see his face better now, illuminated by the outdoor lighting and highlighted by the glow of the adjacent infinity pool. He had some fine lines here and there, and his hair was ever so slightly thinning, suggesting signs of age. But he was one fine man, and his physique did not match his age. When I say he's strapping, he truly was. He had, I dare say, a better body than me, strong and muscular. It was evident that he took care of himself. Been there, done that, he said, bringing his glass to his lips. My eyes followed the trail of his glass and landed on his thick lips. Why was this man so magnetic? I've only known him for, 10 minutes? And already his features made a distinct effect on me. Been a favorite of Kepler once, too. Is he? I started hesitantly. Gay? The man asked back. Oh, he sure is. And he likes young folks like you. Oh, I said surprisingly. He liked you too, then. He laughed, taking another sip of his drink. He sure did. Once upon a time when I was still in my glory days, he replied. I'm James Jackman, by the way. Nice to meet you, James, I said, shaking his hand. Kent Hill, and for the record, I don't think you're past your glory days. He looked at me expectantly and raised an eyebrow. He then smirked, and I could not help but smile back at him. He might be aging, but he sure as hell was once a charming man. Never pegged you to like your men like you like your whiskey. It was my turn to flash him a smirk. Who said anything about liking you? He chuckled and raised his glass at me. Smart mouth you have there, Kent. I shrugged. So what do you do for a living? That was the start of a night full of conversation. James might have started off merely by being my savior from the creep Kepler, but he salvaged my night in more ways. For the first time since moving to Los Angeles, I could genuinely say I had fun. And it was not because the drinks in this mansion were particularly fancy or some known DJ was gracing the dance floor, but because I was tucked in a corner of a bar with drinks free-flowing, and engaging in a conversation with someone whose company I genuinely enjoyed. I learned that James was an artist and was a very seasoned art collector. While I prompted him to tell me about his many experiences from museum trips in Europe to the one-of-a-kind piece from Asia, what took me aback was that he took much interest in me, unlike the Hollywood stuck-ups that I knew. James was not the tiniest bit self-absorbed, and he listened. And I suppose that is all I really needed, someone who listened. Twilight crept in swiftly, and before I knew it, my brother-in-law approached me to inform me that we were heading back. He was kind enough to give me a lift and was dropping me off at my apartment. I don't think I've met someone with such substance, I told James honestly. Really? That's an honor, coming from someone like you. I gazed expectantly at him. What do you mean? You see people, he replied. You're rather observant and keen on plenty of things, it seems. I nodded. I try. There was an awkward pause when I swear you could have heard a hairpin drop. Look, we both spoke at the same time. I gestured for him to go first, and he scratched his head, grinning sheepishly. Look, I know this might not be the most ideal connection to you, and I honestly don't know how you will benefit from this. If it ever progresses, he started, stuttering every now and then, which was uncharacteristic of the charming and magnetic man that I was conversing with earlier. What I mean to say is, I would love to have dinner with you some other time and, talk through all these things again. Only if you want to, of course. My heart was thumping in my chest. I did not think I ever had made a connection as strong as ours for as little time as that. I'd love to. First dates were always a bore for me. I've never dated anyone longer than a couple of months either, because most of the guys I met in the City of Angels were a downright bore. Surely, they were equipped with looks and money, but they frequently had the personality of a brick. From our lengthy conversations at the party earlier that week, I already knew that perhaps James would not be like other men. Not only was he extremely well-spoken, but he had a humor too. As I sat in an Italian restaurant downtown across him later that week, I could not help but feel the anxiousness mounting. Could this be it, or could it be another letdown? As elated as I was when we first walked into the restaurant, there was a tension hanging in the air since the hostess blurted when leading us to the seats James reserved. Should we expect the rest of the family, or is it a father and son night out? Asked the hostess. My mouth went slightly agape and I was speechless, but James came to the rescue. No, just us, on a date. The employee swiftly apologized and led us to 2 seats in the far corner of the restaurant, quite secluded from the rest of the crowd to give us the privacy, I suppose. There was a tension hanging in the air now as we waited for our appetizer because of that exchange. Does that happen to you often? I mustered the courage to ask. James looked puzzled. You mean, do I often bring boys half my age out? No. You're the first, and I did not intentionally do it. There go the butterflies again. Why were each of this man's lines a winner? Did I truly have my expectations for men on an all-time low, or did he simply exceed the usual standard tremendously? Suppose it was the latter. Same with me, I replied. I mean, I've never really looked at age, Got you, but we tend to gravitate towards people our age, I suppose, he said. Does that bother you? I peered at him, and I saw him for the first time a man who was conscious of what people thought. The short time I had known him, he had been carefree and opinionated, and sure as hell did not care of what the status quo thought of him. And I liked him for that. No, I answered truthfully. Does it bother you? He shook his head vigorously before letting out an audible sigh of relief. It bothers me if it bothers you, and I just want you to feel comfortable and be able to be yourself, I know we have talked about the ugly side of LA and how pretentious pretty much everyone we know is. I don't want to be one of them. Neither do I. So does that mean I could kiss you after this meal? He teased. During dinner, it felt like I was talking to an old friend. Our conversations flowed seamlessly with little to no pauses, which was extremely rare for the first dates for me. Very quickly, I learned that James was a passionate artist who made his own living. Since the tender age of 18, he moved out of his abusive parents' home and made ends meet by selling his commission pieces. He did not get to formally study art as a young adult, but made it a point to go back to university once he had a comfortable salary. I realized then that my situation at the moment differed so immensely from his as a young man. I had my path provided for me, having a family that supported my ambitions and provided without fail for me. But I was still lost. A young artist who had sparks of creativity every now and then, but was nonetheless still wanting to break free and find his art style. James and I had so many similarities in terms of interest, but we were still worlds apart in terms of experiences. Luckily for me, instead of being condescending, James immediately came to my rescue and gave words of encouragement. Don't be too hard on yourself. Surely you have your parents and your sister as a safety net, but that doesn't mean that your hard work is in vain. I mean, you said it yourself, you want to succeed. That already sets you apart from all the other privileged adults your age who refuse to work hard knowing that their parents already have the money. Funny that you refer it to as an adult, I commented. I don't feel like one. But you are one, and I will call you that because it's my sign of respect. Besides, you are much more of an adult, owning up to your responsibilities better than most men my age. I know you don't see it, but you're doing way better than you think you are. I've only met you weeks ago, and I'm already proud of you. You just need more time to find your footing, and I'm here if you need me. Maybe you need a muse, he jested, wiggling his eyebrows suggestively. I leaned towards him and gazed intently at his eyes. How was this man real? There were signs of age, but he sure as hell aged beautifully. Don't even get me started on how well he maintained his body at that age. Surely it must be illegal to be that hot at that age. He physically embodied the acronym DILF. You ask me. His sharp intellect is just the icing on top of a very fine cake. Not to mention he spoke the words of an angel, encouraging and inspiring. What kind of muse will you be? I teased back, picking the cherry off my dessert and putting it on my lips. I could see his sultry eyes wandering to my lips. Anything you want me to be. That's how we ended up in my small art gallery after dinner. He offered to be my muse, but obviously we weren't going to end up there only to do art. As soon as I closed the doors to my studio, he grabbed my shoulder with brute force, and without hurting me, slammed me against the wall. He looked into my blue eyes and was taking big gulps of breath before his gaze wandered to my lips again. I'm warning you, I won't be able to control this, he said breathily. The tension is too much. You're too much. I feel you in my bones, and you're all that I can really think about, day and night since we met. I've wanted to do this. Do whatever you want to me. Since that fateful night in my art studio, James has been around every day. True to his word, he became my muse. Well, he first offered to be my muse, but became something much more than that. As a more skilled painter, he gave me tips and techniques I never could have learned between the four walls of my classroom. He was my mentor by the day and my lover by the night. I could attempt to draw him in or take inspiration from his face, and I translated on my canvas while he worked remotely from my art studio. During breaks, we would make out on the couch that I had or pass a cigarette between us. It was pure bliss. Only one thing was better than falling in love with someone. It was falling in love with someone you consider your best friend. From the short time I have known him, we had built a connection that could rival friendships I've had for years. James felt like a muse, a best friend, a lover, a soulmate, and a partner all in one. Sooner or later, we developed a routine. He would come into my art gallery on days that I had off from school. I normally use these days to practice my art. He was always there to advise me and help me out. He would work on his laptop, but at times leave me momentarily to attend business. He always came back with a cup of coffee for me and some food. Get you a man who made love to you well and fed you even better. Man, how do you do accounting and why do I have to do this? I'm in art school for fuck's sake. I ranted one night, frustrated by the sheer level of difficulty an elective class was causing me. I was a fool for thinking that an accounting class would help me learn the ropes once I finally opened my own shop selling my beloved art. James laughed at my misery from his work desk, and I glared at him. He then plopped down on the couch next to me and rubbed my hair lovingly before taking the worksheets off my hands. This is basic, he stated. I rolled my eyes playfully, leaning on his shoulder. For you, smartass. It is. But for me, I shook my head forcefully. I'll help you, he said after pinching my nose. He seemed to be having fun teasing me and watching me suffer because of my schoolwork, but I knew he would not be able to resist me, and would soon assist me in my work. Thank you, I whispered as I gazed at him while he pondered over my assignment. You're the best tutor / mentor / kisser / lover, everything. He paused and put his nose against mine, looking straight into my eyes. Hey, I've been meaning to ask you, he started. Would you like to go visit my art gallery? I almost squealed out of excitement. Plenty of times he talked about his art gallery. I had only ever seen him work his magic on canvases in my own art studio, but I have never visited his gallery and seen his art myself. So I was pumped to say the least. I'd love to, I exclaimed. Where is it? My house. The thing about James Jackman is that he was completely unassuming from the onset of my meeting with him. He was unpredictable. As breathtaking as he was on the exterior, he was just as beautiful on the inside. It was hot news to me that this man was extremely successful. I mean, how could he not be? He was intelligent and crafty, but above all, he was hardworking and savvy. So when he said he was going to take me to his house, that also doubled up as his art gallery. I sure as hell expected something affluent. But not to the extent of a mansion. He lived in a multi-story mansion atop of Hollywood Hills with an infinity pool overlooking Los Angeles. This man was not just rich, he was crazy rich. Who the hell was this guy I was dating? You like it? He asked casually, as we concluded the tour of his basement, which housed some of his most prized paintings. Like it? Love it, I replied. But I can't believe it. Can't believe what? He said as we settled into one of his bars and then poured me a drink. I gestured to the entirety of his property. That you live in a king's den like this, babe. You wear beat-up Converses. You have like 5 shirts in your rotation. You even have a CVS extra care card. He chuckled and then handed me a glass of whiskey. Whiskey, old as hell, just like how you like your men. Man, I corrected him, singular. Gotcha, he laughed. But for real, I never would have expected you to live like this. Well, what can I say? I worked my butt off for my entire life to be able to afford something as grand as this. You deserve it, I replied earnestly. Thank you, my love. Are you happy in this home? And doing the art that you love and making a big bank out of your so-called small business, which turned out to be a whole-ass corporation? I rolled my eyes. Of course, he attempted to downplay his wealth. How very James. And it just made me love him more. I am, he replied, but I'd be happier if I have someone to share this with, and I invited you here because we've been seeing each other for a while. I know I call you my love and you call me your lover, but I want to seal it. You're the real deal for me. Growing up and with all those years of dating around, I've never wanted someone as much as I want you. I want you. You're already my finish line, Kent Hill. No one could come after you, and if you let me, I will love you forever. Without hesitation, I kissed him square on the lips. We shared a passionate kiss, our souls intertwining that very moment. I love you, and without hesitation, I would spend the rest of my life with you. I try to imagine a life without you, and I just can't. Not anymore. Now that I've found you, there's no letting go. A May to December romance, huh? Who could have ever thought? The end. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become part of our Rainbow Force, and stay wholesome.